Andrew Flores, Bonita High School, Period 1, Mr. Eichen, AP English Language Literature. This is my extra credit project for semester 1 on the book Beloved by Toni Morrison, and hope you enjoy. Toni Morrison is an American novelist and editor. She was born Chloe Anthony Wolford in Ohio on February 18, 1931. Some of her most famous works include The Bluest Eyes, Sula, Jazz, Song of Solomon, and Beloved. From these novels, she has become a very eminent writer and cultural icon for the African American community. Her career is well decorated from her various accomplishments and awards, which include the American Book Award, the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature, making her just the first African American woman to receive this award, and lastly, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She also became a professor in 1989 at the prestigious Princeton University. Morrison's greatest masterpiece was her novel Beloved. This was the novel that won her the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature. It was written in September 1987. During this time, the United States was involved in the Cold War. Morrison, during this time, was an advocate for the lives of black women. The Cold War was beginning to end soon, and the U.S. was about to win. This was a major event of the time period, and I believe that it influenced the writing of the book. I think that Morrison took into account the current situation at the time and wanted to inform the public of the sorrow that slaves felt. She wanted to show the U.S. that was not always such a great place. She points out a major flaw in the history of the U.S. by creating a fictional story that was inspired by a true story, of a runaway African-American slave named Margaret Garner. The story takes place several years after the end of the Civil War in 1873. Most of the story's setting is located in Ohio, near and in a house haunted by the ghost of Seth's daughter. Seth is the main character and kills her eldest daughter when she was an infant, so that she wouldn't have to grow up and experience being a slave. This house is haunted by her ghost and is now known as 124 Bluestone Road. Morrison also uses flashbacks to describe the setting and parts of the story. Personally, this was challenging to read because of the continuous flashbacks and the way that the flashbacks were presented. But anyways, these flashbacks take place on a plantation in Kentucky called Sweet Home around 1850 and describe the early lives and escape journeys of the two slave characters, Seth and Paul D. These flashbacks are significant to the novel because they occurred during the time of the Fugitive Slave Act, which was how slaves' masters would enter the North and claim that slaves were theirs and they were runaways and they would recapture them. This was important because it depicted the history of slaves running away and also how Paul D. and Seth arrive at 124 Bluestone Road. Seth is a runaway slave who escapes Sweet Home, Kentucky, as said before. She acts as a motherly figure and shows compassion to the other characters, such as Paul D., Denver, Beloved, and Baby Suggs. Morrison shows through the character that even though many years had passed since being a slave, she still vividly remembers the cruelty seen by her scars. This is significant because it defines how horrible slavery was and also shows the lasting effects that it had. Baby Suggs was also a motherly figure, but for the community as a whole, and especially for Seth, because Seth didn't know her mother growing up. Baby Suggs provided shelter and directions for other passing runaways and also served as a minister of the church. She preached to the rest of the community and was seen highly by other people, but she then fell into seclusion and introspection. She lost faith in the world because she was betrayed by the black community. This is significant because it showed that even the most inspired people during this time era eventually fell under the daunting effects of slavery. Lastly, Beloved. Beloved is the ghost in human form of Seth's eldest daughter, whom she murdered to protect her from slavery. She returns to 124 Bluestone Road to harm the family. She possessed demon-like qualities like her raspy voice and her violent ways. Paul D doesn't trust her, but Denver and Seth want to take her in because they truly believe that she is Seth's daughter. Beloved ends up almost harming them, then suddenly disappears. This is significant because she signifies the embodiment of how slavery haunted everyone. Morrison uses Beloved's character to show that nobody could escape the dark effects of slavery. All of these characters show the past effects of how slavery affected everyone during this time, and it could not be escaped. Two overall themes that Morrison applies to the story are listed below. The theme of focusing on the past is seen throughout the whole story with Seth. Seth almost harms herself, as well as Paul D and Denver, by taking in Beloved. This can be applied to real life. The other theme of loving the community and family is seen when Seth thinks of the future with herself, Paul D, Denver, and the rest of the black community. She is able to look forward through her love of the people around her. With this, she creates a new family with Paul D and Denver. This can also be applied to real life, and with anyone that has love in a community and for family, they can always move forward. I think this is significant because it also applies to the Cold War that I mentioned earlier, how those people during that time needed to look forward and love the people around them in their community. And that's it. I hope you all enjoyed my presentation on the book Beloved by Toni Morrison, and I'll see you later.